Well, good Sunday morning, and thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. From the desk of the White House and with the stroke of the president's pen, more than 20 years of ambition is finally set in motion. The approval of the presidential permit for the 4-5 bridge has officials celebrating, calling it a major victory for the area and declaring it'll elevate Laredo and Webb County into a new era. Or as one county leader says, a rousing wake-up call to those who say it couldn't be done.
This is who we are and what we're about. This sleepy little town of Laredo, Texas, Webb County is no longer. We're going to grow like we've never seen growth before.
Well, that reaction coming hours after President Joe Biden signed the presidential permit for a new international bridge in Webb County. The bridge, known as the 4-5 bridge for now, is the 4th international bridge for the Mexican state of Tamaulipas and the 5th for Webb County. The new bridge will be located in South Webb County, just 13 miles south from the Laredo city limits and nestled right between El Cenizo and Rio Bravo. But it took time to get it done. Officials called the decades of planning and anticipation a watershed moment. And as county officials explain, it's the right location at the right time, made possible by working on a shared vision.
The growth in South Laredo is coming, and I guarantee you that we are going to grow so much, industrial, commercial, and all these things that are coming to fruition.
That's the location we need to be at. There's plenty of open ground on both sides. All the proper infrastructure can be put in place before we need it.
The Bible says that you got to have faith of a mustard seed and we can move mountains. This is exactly what this is. This is a perfect example of us moving mountains when we work together.
And work together they did. It was that collaboration that the county judge commended, including working across the aisle, across party lines, and across levels of government. Both Texas senators released statements on the news, with Senator Ted Cruz calling the project a top priority that'll now increase trade and provide new economic opportunities. Senator John Cornyn also weighed in, emphasizing that international bridges drive economic growth. He praised the permit approval, saying it'll create high-paying jobs for Webb County and neighboring areas. Well, the bridge is expected to begin construction within the next 5 years by the Southwest Bridge Company, and the bridge will be used for pedestrians, commercial vehicles, and hazmat traffic. And that's where we're going to begin this morning's discussion with our panelists. We've got Sergio Mora, KGNS political contributor. He is joining us via Zoom. We're going to hear from him in just a little bit. We also have Luis Villarreal. He is the general manager, of course, with KGNS. And our guest today, Congressman Henry Cuellar. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And good morning, Sergio. We know you're there listening to us, so we'll be able to talk to you in just a bit. So this was a huge news. This was all people spoke about for, since the minute it hit the news. But there's a little bit more to the story, and we're so glad, Congressman, you were able to join us this morning.
Thank you so much. And again, pleasure being here with you. And Sergio, hello from Austin, Texas. Keep Austin weird. So what I wanted to say that, the legislation that I passed in the House, Senator Cruz and Cornyn passed, really did change the way we looked at the bridges. It's not only for Webb County. I was hoping to get 3 out of 5, but I think there's going to be another bridge that we'll talk about soon. But this legislation just expedited the thing. So it was a game changer for building bridges, because it was just taking so long, with all due respect, under the Biden administration. So we changed the process. They didn't like it, but we got it done. Mm-hmm.
Does this have something to do with the whole environmental studies and all these things that were getting in the way of these processes?
Yes. Look, under President Trump, when you look at the Kansas City or the Canadian bridge, what President Trump did is that they approved the presidential permit, and they allowed the environmental process to go at the same time. What Biden wanted to do was he wanted to clear the environmental before, and that would have just added years and years and years to this. So we said, let's do it at the same time, quite honestly, the way President Trump did it. And that's why that bridge is going to be opened up very soon, the rail bridge. So that's what we did. Now, I had a different piece of legislation. Mine was going to open up for the northern and the southern area without having a deadline of September 30th or 31st of this year. But in the Senate, they went with a more restricted version. I supported that one, and this is what we have. So this legislation actually expires at the end of the year, and that's why we're seeing this movement on this. So, you know, the 4-5, if you look at the history, first it was originally a situation between the city and the county. They had their own place. And then instead of working together, what happened was, then a third entity came in, which is a private entity that came in. And here we have a different location and different entity.
And that is the entity that actually secured this permit.
So, So we want to just clarify that. This is not a city bridge. It's not a county bridge. It's a private bridge. Is that correct?
It is a private. It's not a county. The county didn't file this. The city didn't file the application. If you look at the actual paperwork by the president, it was a private company, and it's allowed. It's allowed to do this. So, you know, the county has been the biggest supporter, but they did not file this. It was filed by a private entity. And look, and I have another private bridge in my district, what I call down there in Roma, Rio Grande. But it was interesting. You know, there's different ways to handle this. You can either have a model, the way they do it down there, what I call the Sam Vale Bridge. What they did is they built it, and then they leased it to GSA, and the federal government is running it, but it's owned by a private company.
Gotcha.
Or you can have something, and this would be interesting if Webb County wants to look at this, so I'm talking about the entities, not Webb County only, but the Anzador Bridge, you know, there were different cities that wanted to have the bridge, and what did they do? They built a bridge, and they got a bridge board made up of McAllen, Mission, and Hidalgo.
And they all share in the...
And they all share, but it's run by the government. So, you know, here you could have, as an example, you could have the city of Laredo, which they have the experience, the county doesn't, the city does. You can have the county, and you can also have a small partners, El Cenizo and Rio Bravo, so they can share in the wealth instead of it going to one entity. Now, yesterday I did talk to one of the owners of this company, and he said he's open to talking to the city and the county about how they're going to play. Because remember, the leverage is not with the county or the city. The leverage is whoever has the permit. And who has the permit.
So this private company owns the permit. They have the permit.
They own the permit. They're the ones that have the leverage now. So now it's up to the good negotiators in the city and the county to, and maybe Rio Bravo and Cenizo, depending how they set this up, to work this out.
But let me ask you, Congressman, so if the private company has the permit, not the city, not the county, but the private company doesn't know anything about running a bridge or building a bridge, how do they contract then to do that?
Yeah, they just enter into a negotiations and agreement. Now, if I was them, I would work with the city because the city has the experience. The other entities don't have the experience. They might be able to run jails. They might be able to do county roads and all that. The city has the experience. So the more prudent thing to do is to bring the city and the other entities in.
But the income that generates from a bridge would go to whom then?
Well, that's up to
how the negotiation goes.
That's their own negotiations. And that's what I'm saying. If you have the leverage, which is a permit, then you have a lot of say-so.
Then you have a lot of say-so.
They have a lot of say-so.
Yeah.
And look, and there's nothing wrong with private company. I got some other ones in the Valley also. And talking about private entities, again, there is another private company that has submitted the permit. They filed it last week, and that is a company called Green Couriers. They had been talking to the city to try to do it together on the Columbia Bridge expansion. The city basically thought that they were going to be delayed by this company. Well, surprise, 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 they hired a different engineering group. Somebody has a lot of experience. And that person in the Valley who has been building bridges was able to file this in almost 3.5 months or so.
Wow.
And last week, they filed, and it's been accepted, not approved, but it's been accepted by the State Department. And that is, this Green Courier is basically, they're going to be right next to the Columbia Bridge because they want to access Monterrey and then come in. So it's basically, think about an elevated track. and then they put a conveyor belt, and then these containers are moved over in a container. Now, maybe $4 or $5 billion to do all that, but they're asking for the permit already.
This could actually be Webb County's 6th bridge if it gets approved.
That is,
or the 6th bridge in Webb County.
That is correct. So I've been meaning to talk to Senator Cornyn and Cruz, and I think I'll see him in about a week or two. But this legislation has been a game changer. Has been really a game changer. And like I said, Webb County, and I'm talking about this area here, it might be getting, I thought it was going to be 3 out of 5, but it might be 4 out of 6.
Yeah, wow.
Which is amazing. And I'll say this. For those both private, and I did talk to some of the folks from that Green Courier, it's a private company, and I said I would encourage you to continue talking to the city because I want the government, the city, involved in the 4-5. I certainly want them involved in this Green Courier because the city has the experience and they bring a lot to the table.
Well, we're gonna send it over to Sergio. Sergio, we know that you are probably bursting with questions for Congressman Cuellar. So you've got the floor, Sergio.
I have a couple, Congressman. First of all, it says it's a conditional permit based on environmental concerns. What environmental occurrences could happen for it to sort of like derail the project? And number two, when are cars and trucks going to be passing that bridge? I understand it's a commercial, vehicular, and pedestrian. When are we going to finally be using it?
Yeah. Well, first of all those bridge permits, the one in should I say Eagle Pass, the ones here in Laredo, the ones out there in Brownsville, they're all conditional. Like I said, the legislation we passed was to not do what President Biden's people were doing, where they said you got to clear all the environmental, make sure there's nothing that will be affecting the environmental issues in the river and on the river banks itself. So they're all conditional, including the World Trade Bridge, including what the Columbia is, including the Green Corridor, including, if that goes through, including the 4-5. They're all, same thing in Brownsville, they're all conditional. So we're not waiving, like they did on the border wall, we're not waiving any of the environmentals. We're just saying, give us a permit and let us work so we can move and save years and years and years. So that's one. When are they going to build it? I don't know.
It has to start within 5 years.
That's what the presidential permit says, correct?
Right, but I've been involved where they've been extended for another 5 years, another 5 years. I've had that situation in the Valley where they've been extended. So they have up to 5 years, but that can always be extended if the need be. Now, keep in mind, and I've taken helicopter rides to that area, there's nothing over there. There's no infrastructure, all that. And one of the things that I've talked to the Texas Department of Transportation is, look, if you're looking at this 4-5, I do not want monies that we put in, the Mines Road, the Vacíos, the other areas, I-35, to be shifted over there. It has to be new monies. And I looked at some of the plans where, they build a road from, let's say, where the bridge might be up to 83, and then connected to the loop. Everybody's talking about the outer loop. But the outer loop is going to be years and years and years. And this is why we're putting so much money on overpasses on the Loop 20. Yep. And if you look at what we're seeing on Loop 20, a lot of people don't realize what's happening on Loop 20, but we put over $300 million to expand it. Because again, if you're there around 5 o'clock in the afternoon or so, or in the morning, it is packed. So we're looking at expanding that, and that's why we're putting over $300 million. So what I was telling the Texas Department of Transportation, look, 80% of all those dollars that come in here are federal dollars. $1.2 billion are coming in. I personally do not want to see those monies in the northern area be shifted over there. We have to find new dollars and not play whack-a-mole here.
Okie doke. Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue speaking with Congressman Cuellar on Bridge 4-5 and what this all means for our economy. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of Beyond the Headlines. We are continuing this morning's conversation where we left off and the impact of the presidential permit for Laredo and Webb County and for the private entity that was actually awarded the presidential permit. And of course, we are very thankful for Congressman Cuellar for joining us on this edition of Beyond the Headlines. So, we wanted to talk a little bit about the infrastructure around the bridge and the impact of that, and are we going to be ready for that?
So, but before we go into there, Congressman, let me just clarify something that I think it's important that people understand, that the permit is in the hands of a private company. It's not in the hands of the city. It is not in the hands of the county, and all the negotiation power as to how this is done is residing in the hands of the private company.
Right.
That is a correct statement.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know the county got very excited about this. They had their press conference, good for them. But understand that it was not the county that got the permit. It was not the city of Laredo that got the permit. It was actually a private company that got this.
And they submitted the application, the private company.
They submitted it and it got approved. If you look at the presidential permit, it was not given to Webb County. It was given not to the city of Laredo. It was given to a private company. So look, quite honestly, I mean, the reality of this private company now has the leverage over the county, over the city. We're hoping that the good nature of this company will negotiate.
Ultimately, they want it to work.
They want to work. And if they were, again, with all due respect, and I've talked to both the two companies, the Green Couriers and the company in the 4-5, they want this to work. And the only way they can make it work is by getting the local government. And again, they can get the county, they can get Rio Bravo, they can get El Cenizo a part of a board, but the city of Laredo should be part of it because they're in the job of running bridges. Correct. And that's the way to maximize this. And looking at the big picture, and I've told the Department of Transportation, we put in federal dollars, and 80% of those dollars that are coming in are federal dollars. I do not want monies from transportation to be shifted from 35 from the Mines Road over to the south. This has to be new monies. I did talk to the Department of Transportation. They're assuring me because it's going to be $25 years, should I say. It's going to be about $500 million just to do the connection up to the Loop 20. The outer loop is totally way in the future, and it's going to cost a lot more money. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have to get new dollars, transportation dollars, and not take it from the northern part itself, because that's where we have most of our trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Sergio, you have a question for Congressman.
Yeah, so if it's a private company that got the permit, are they footing the bill for the construction of it?
Yes, and they have to submit planning for funding plans for not only the construction, but how are you going to man that with CBP? How are you going to put the technology? And there's a lot of things. So the responsibility is up to the private company. Now, as I said, there's different models out there. This is not the only private company. We might have a second private company that will be coming in, the Green Couriers. They already filed their paperwork last week. So we have to keep in mind that if that company, if they want to make it work, they should bring in the local government, especially the city of Laredo.
Fair enough.
I have another question. In terms of we always hear about the permitting process in the United States. What is the process in Mexico? Is it similar? And when was the permit issued for the bridge in Mexico?
Well, I don't know if what they've done on the Mexican side, but I can tell you there would have to be, before construction is done, there has to be a diplomatic note between the U.S. and Mexico. So there's another step coming in. I can tell you, when I was in Mexico City earlier this year, they were saying that they've been waiting on the U.S., and they were very excited about this, this legislation we've been talking about. This legislation that Cornyn, Cruz, and myself passed, it has been a game changer. And again, I personally didn't want to have a timeline of December 31st, but it does have a timeline, and maybe I'm going to talk to the senators to see if we can extend it. But building bridges is important. And think about it, just this law that we changed and I'm happy for all the local governments. But think about it. The World Trade Bridge expansion got moved fast. We're going to move pretty quick. We're going to have the Columbia Bridge done. They're still waiting for the application to be filed. The 4-5 is another one. And that's been in the makings for years, but this law changed it. And then, of course, the corridor, the Green Corridor, would be another one. So Webb County, and I say Laredo because it's really Laredo, Laredo will be staying as definitely as the #1 port of entry. And this new technology, if it happens through Green Corridor, it's going to be something where they're going to be moving containers without the usage of trucks, except when they get to the U.S. side.
A lot of exciting stuff happening all together, all these constructions. The Mexican side and their new customs national office being in Laredo, it speaks volumes as to what can happen to our community. I mean, County Judge Tano said it best. I mean, it has the potential to be a game changer for our community. So definitely exciting. It's like, okay, hurry up and wait now.
I know. How long before all of this
How long before
gets
we
started?
actually see it, right?
Exactly.
So,
Will we still be alive when
You'll
all
be
this
alive
happens?
when this happens.
Okay.
We'll see it.
Okie doke. Well, we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, it's the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Welcome back, everybody. We've gotten to the point of the show where we cannot stop thinking about that one thing, so we're going to hand it over to Sergio. Sergio.
Well, you guys know that Amazon has always been on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to delivering our products the very same day. This system, it's called the Visual Package Retrieval System. It allows drivers to speed things up by highlighting, the system highlights what packages are going to be delivered in that particular stop, erasing a lot of time that they needed to sort through everything. And I think it's just great on how technology is applied in a very productive way that certainly makes these guys' job easier, delivery guys, because they have a tough job going around town delivering so many packages. So I just wanted to highlight this new system that they're using. I find it pretty neat.
Pretty neat. As long as we get our packages, we love it.
So speaking of technology, Serge, and how, you know, this whole, I know it got averted or delayed or pushed into next year, the strike with the port. And the ports. And one of their biggest issues is automation. Right? And, you know, they want to secure their future and their place, but how do you stop it? You know, I mean, Amazon and everybody else is going in that direction. You know, it's funny how that thing plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Luis and I, we don't have a one thing.
Well,
no, we do have a one thing.
Let me give you a one thing real quickly.
All right.
Serge, look up the last 1 mile of the United States Post Office. Those companies, those private companies, a lot of times the last mile is delivered not by those companies, by the U.S. because it's too expensive to go in certain areas, so they stay to the very important routes that they have where they make money. So at the last bit, it's taxpayers that deliver those for those private companies. Look up the last 1 minute.
The last 1 mile.
1 mile.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Didn't know that.
Sounds good. Well, I think Luis and I, our one thing is probably going to be the Bridge 4-5.
Let's see how long, you know, let's see how much we can dream about the 4-5 bridge, and hopefully we'll get to see it. I want to walk across it. I walked across the Columbia Bridge when it first opened up in, what was it, 2001, I think it was, when it opened up, or, I mean, I'm sorry, 1990, that's when it would opened up.
Wow, so, and you walked across it. Very cool.
Maybe I'll get to do it again.
Okie doke. Well, thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us. Appreciate having you this week. Appreciate you guys and joining us. We appreciate your time. So with that, we'll see you for the next issue or episode of Beyond the Headlines.